Long ago, there lived an old herbalist known as Baba Kure. He was quiet, polite, and always seen with his wooden cane. Most believed he was just a lonely widower. Children whispered about the strange bones hanging from his hut and the flies that never left his doorway. Baba Kure was not just a herbalist. He was a bone wizard, one who practiced black earth magic. He didn't just use roots, he used bones. Human bones. He had a pact with a demon buried beneath his hut. In exchange for power and protection, he would dig up the graves of the newly dead, whispering spells and collecting the bones in secret. But it wasn't just the dead he used. When a young girl named Salma disappeared after refusing to greet him, the village grew suspicious. Her voice began echoing from inside Baba Kure's hut at night, crying, begging, and then laughing. One night, brave young men entered the hut to find it empty. No Baba Kure, just a giant pile of bones arranged in the shape of a throne, and it was still warm. The next morning, the baobab trees around the village had grown faces, all of them screaming, "Now, they say Baba Kure is still alive or undead." If you disrespect the old or step on a grave at night, you might hear his cane tapping behind you, and if you turn around, you'll be next in the throne. They called her Mama Ik. She lived alone, spoke to shadows, and walked barefoot, even when the ground boiled in heat. Children said her eyes were always moving, even when she was asleep. The elders said she once turned a man into a goat and made his wife cook him. So one night, they dragged her from her hut, tied her hands with palm leaves, and dug a pit behind the old mango tree. She didn't scream. She bit the earth hard till her mouth bled. Then she whispered into the soil, "Anyone who walks over me will carry me with them." They buried her deep. But years later, strange footprints started appearing on villages' roofs. Women woke with bites on their ankles. Babies stopped crying when placed on the mango tree's roots. And every year on the night they buried her, the same mango falls first, rotten, black, with blood inside. Now no one walks near that tree, and if you do by mistake, don't look back, because they say she follows barefoot. They say Mama Nena never cried when her son died. She just smiled and kept the fire burning under the clay cooking pot. At first, people thought grief had broken her, but then her neighbors said they heard her whispering into the pot, calling his name, feeding it bones. One night, a child peeked into her window and screamed. They found him the next morning, mute, shaking. He never spoke again. The elders went to confront Mama Nena, but she was gone. Only the cooking pot remained, still warm and filled with water. They say if you look into it, you'll see eyes looking back, eyes that don't blink, eyes that don't belong to you. Some say the pot is buried somewhere outside the village. Others say it still shows up in kitchens that forget to pray. But one thing's certain, if the fire under the pot ever lights again, he'll come back hungry. In a forgotten village surrounded by endless forests, there lived an old woman named Grandmother Ebele. People feared her, not because she cursed them, but because her warnings always came true. If she warned you not to leave your door open at night and you ignored her, something would slip inside, something not human. If she told you not to walk through the east road at sunset and you did, you would never find your way home again. The villagers respected her deeply but kept their distance. She lived alone in a small, crumbling hut at the village edge, speaking only when necessary, and every word carried the weight of death or survival. One rainy season, when a group of boys dared to mock her and ignored her latest warning, something terrifying awakened from the forest. And this time, Grandmother Ebele said nothing. She simply closed her door and blew out her lamp. The boys' screams echoed into the night, swallowed by the endless trees. By morning, there was no trace of them. Only the heavy mist remained, curling between the huts like a living thing. Grandmother Ebele sat silently at her doorstep, staring at the forest with unreadable eyes. She had spoken before, she had warned them, and now she had said all that needed to be said. Everyone knew Auntie Mopa Lola. She welcomed every traveler with warm food and a safe bed, but one night the wrong visitor came knocking. If you love creepy stories like this, make sure to follow for more. A heavy knock shook her door. Outside stood a woman, soaked from head to toe, her wide eyes burning in the dark. Without thinking, Auntie Mapalola pulled her inside. She slammed the door shut and stoked the fire higher. The woman said nothing. She just stared at the flames, water dripping from her tattered dress. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She just sat there, smiling a broken smile. Hours passed. The storm raged outside. The fire began to die. Mopalola grew uneasy. She whispered a prayer under her breath. The visitor finally moved. The woman turned to her and spoke in a voice like the crackling fire.
You opened your door to death, but you have kindness in your heart. I will spare you.
Then, before Auntie Mopalola could breathe, the woman's body dissolved into smoke. The mist rushed out the door as if pulled by invisible hands. Mopalola collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest, gasping for air. By morning, the village found her still alive, shaking but breathing. A deep black mark burned into her doorway, a warning that death had come and had been turned away. Auntie Mopalola never opened her door again, but she lived long enough to tell the story herself and to warn others, kindness can save you, but only once.